Hello, welcome to another week. This is the Year of Mindfulness, week 5, and this week we're going to be talking about two subjects. Number one is food porn. There was a study I read in a book. It's called Mindless Eating: Why We Eat More Than We Think, and Brian Wainsack described a donut study where the participants who were thinking about that donut all day long ended up going back for it, ended up eating more food than the person who just spontaneously saw the donut and ate it. And I thought about that in the recent story I shared about the cookie, where I had thought about making this delicious cookie recipe and for weeks. And then when I finally made it, I devoured 6 cookies before I even realized it and mindlessly ate them without even really truly enjoying them. And I thought about how often I've been guilty about thinking about food and wanting to and being excited about eating whatever food it is, whether it's at a restaurant or whether I'm making something, and how I overindulge in foods. And I thought about how, or most of us are probably all guilty of this, and my willpower's kryptonite is sugary foods. I mean, those are my weakness and my favorite things to eat and indulge on. And I thought about how we can try to consciously be aware of that and how we'll have a weakness for it. And so I've been trying to work on trying to change that in my brain. So if I find myself going down that rabbit hole of fantasizing about a food, then I try to stop myself or think about my why and just change the channel instead of going down the rabbit hole of thinking about that food and being excited about how good it's going to be. And that seems like it's helped a little. And I was thinking about how my brain got to this point and the all or nothing mentality that reading all these books, and how they affected my brain. So I was reading about paleo diets and ketotarian diets and keto diets and vegetarian diets and vegan diets and plant-based diets, and I read some books on why you should never eat the 6 most allergenic foods like soy and corn and gluten and dairy, and why you shouldn't eat meat and why you shouldn't eat sugar. And it just developed these all or nothing good food, bad food behaviors that got me here and made me have a hard time enjoying food, and also having a all or nothing mentality. So I would try to binge on my favorite foods and then stop eating them. And I just was thinking about how we all have, how dieting does that to us. So whenever we diet and whenever we try to limit our foods, it triggers these crazy messages in our brains, and it keeps us from having a healthier relationship with food and being able to be normal. And so that's why my number one goal for this year is just to try to have a healthier brain and develop healthier strategies to help me eat healthy without sabotaging my brain into thinking that we're going to have moments of scarcity. And during these episodes and fantasizing about food, one of an interesting study that I read was about shaming ourselves and how women who shame themselves or guilt themselves after they eat something do worse. In fact, there's a study, and it was a social and clinical psychology study at Duke University, and it enrolled a group of weight-conscious women, and they fed everyone a donut. And then afterwards, they split the women into 2 groups. And one group ate, one group they gave a lesson on self-compassion, and then afterwards, in the other group they didn't. And then afterwards, they had them eat as many Skittles as they want, and they had a bowl of Skittles in front of them. And they noticed that the women who had the self-compassion lecture ate almost half as less than the women who did not get that lecture. And I thought about how much we beat ourselves up when we eat a food that we don't like. And I think some people probably do it worse than I do. And I thought about how guilt and shame are not effective and how they don't help. And I remember growing up, when I was a young teenager, I was at this home of this family, and the parents were so critical, and it just seemed like the children were recurrently shamed, and I just thought about the anxiety and depression and stress that I felt just being in the house, and I thought about how we do that to ourselves, and how shaming and guilt just increases the anxiety and depression that people suffer. And so one of the things I was hoping that we all could help do is be more compassionate with ourselves. And one of the favorite things that I learned about was there's two things. One of them is a mantra that I read about. It's in a book called Weight Loss for People Who Feel Too Much. And she would say, her name was Colette Baron Reed, and she said, even though I ate whatever food it was, she says, I completely accept myself. And I thought that would be a good mantra for people that struggle with shame. One of my favorite mantras is every time I get frustrated with my lack of progress, and I just keep telling myself that I have to crawl before I can walk. And so just being patient with the process, and that we're all just trying to get better, and we can't fix a year's worth of dysfunction within 1 month. And so just keep working at your progress, and keep being patient with yourself, and really working on not shaming yourself. Another thing that you can work on, we talked last week about mindfulness, but you can work on using loving kindness meditations. There is a free app on the mindfulness app that the VA offers called Mindfulness Coach, and you can try that. One of my favorite websites I've come across is UCLA Mindful Awareness. So if you Google it, they have a loving kindness meditation. And also, if you have trouble sleeping, I love her body scan for sleep. I've been using it for years, and it really helps calm my brain down if I'm have a lot on my mind. So try those activities and see if either of those loving compassion meditations help you with the shame and guilt that you experience, and just coming up with one of the mantras that I shared, or coming up with your own mantra to tell yourself whenever you feel guilty or feel like you're shaming yourself for your lack of progress or how you're doing. So good luck this week, and take care, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.